Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, I still can't get over that new intro. Holy cow. Makes me just want to go, yeah, it's me, Brad. I'm part of Brad and John Show. You know what I'm saying?
You have cemented your reputation, Brad, as my favorite musical composer in 2024.
John, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh, I think I have. I think I went to YouTube last night.
Oh, no.
But we're not going to spoil it for people who are unaware. And by the way, Brad, that's a good lead in to the fact that today on my website, what I've started doing is linking to the YouTube version of our shows. So folks can go today to johncombest.com and find all 3 segments that are on YouTube. Brad and I have gone in, and we've sometimes on the YouTube channel there would be titles that were automatically generated.
Right.
Now we're going day by day and going through and tightening up those titles a little bit, making sure that folks can find our YouTube page. So if you go to johncombest.com today, you can find all 3 segments from Friday, which humbly, Brad, I think was probably our best show. We talked about FUPAs. We talked about what it takes to be a good radio interviewer of a political candidate, the kind of questions they should ask. We talked about spineless men. At the end, Brad gave a teaser that said this week he wanted to talk about landing strips. So I don't know. It's great, though. And folks can listen on YouTube or via bjshow.com.
Well, you said it was our best. Tracy Ellis called me over the weekend, said it was our worst show she's ever heard because we didn't do enough news. So anyway, you know how things go like that. Okay, well, first off, let me stop you for a minute. Are you doing all 3 versions, all 3 segments on YouTube? Or are you just doing the first one?
All 3.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you're going in.
Yeah, so I went and I did Fridays, I did Thursdays, and I think I did Wednesdays as well. It's laborious. So when folks go and listen now, you can go, folks, if you click on description, then you can go to the timestamp. So if you want to hear Brad talk about electric vehicles and talk about Klondike Park, you can just go to electric vehicles. You could just go to Klondike Park and hear exactly what you want to hear. Yeah.
Well, see, John and I sort of have this shared work experience in that and here's how it goes. I go in, and at the end of the show, I chop up the show. I upload the segments onto our podcast site, which is Red Circle. And then John goes back in and cleans, and I also do the post on the bjshow.co website. And John goes in and cleans that up. Well, now you're going in and cleaning up the YouTubes, right? Wow.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, I think we should do whatever we can to help people find the show. And also, what's really cool, Brad, is that with some of these tools that YouTube has, if folks are looking for a specific topic, so if folks are looking about I-44 funding or folks are looking for Tesla deliveries, folks can go in, and that just makes our show that much easier to find.
Well, and I'll compliment you on that because of the fact that it is a very nice feature that YouTube has. I think they call it chapters or something like that.
Yes.
Which essentially what you do is you can go in and like what John is doing, and I think this is actually sort of cool, he's actually going in, listening to the show, and then time stamping where you put this, and if you're a YouTube freak, if you look at the play line on YouTube, you can see the little they look like, I guess you call the pipes, essentially where it looks like the red is sort of not continuous. That's essentially where the chapters are. So in other words,
yeah,
you can look along the line, and if you go like what John's talking about, if you're doing it from your phone, you hit the more button, and it opens up the description. If you're on a desktop, the description is probably right below there anyway, depending upon how big.
And so the chapters, so the timestamps are in the description. And Brad, I haven't gone in and added the actual chapters yet. And I'm not sure if that's automated or not. We're getting kind of technical here. But yeah, I think it'll really help folks who listen to the show that want to go back and be like, hey, what did Brad say about this, or what did John say about that?
Right.
And it definitely helps for people just searching on YouTube now. And as Brad knows, it's the number one search engine now is YouTube.
Right. And for Tracy Ellis's attorneys who want to sue me for whatever I'm going to say, sends me the cease and desist order, it's really easy because the transcript's right there, so they don't have to even, they can just pull it is.
We make it very easy.
Pull the transcript right off.
And Brad, also on YouTube, I don't know if you want to talk about later, but there's some other musical compositions.
Wow! Really? What?
It's amazing how that happens.
Okay, let's.
We'll get into our top three though.
Here, I thought I had a surprise. Okay, okay. Every morning we start the show off. John labors over a hot keyboard every single morning, puts together a great big list of all what he thinks are the top stories in the state of Missouri, typically political kind of stuff. And it could be sources, could be websites of politicians, could be government websites, could be anything, could be a YouTube channel, it could be anything. He puts that together, but what we do is we distill that down into the top three. We have this guy who comes in every morning and he says to us,
we're on our way to the number one.
And we let him go. And he starts off with,
in third place,
my new favorite state representative, Brad. And by the end of this conversation, he might be your new favorite state representative. Don Mayhew was on Scott Fawn's This Week in Missouri Politics show, which aired yesterday. It is the top link on my website today. Now, Brad, you'll remember that Don Mayhew is the guy who had the very creative proposal to, do you remember?
I don't. Remind me.
He wanted to flip-flop the names of I-70 and I-44.
That's right, which to me makes no sense at all.
It makes great sense.
Well, to
Brad.
him it does, right?
If you're on I-44 and you think, hey, why is I-70 getting all that money? Why doesn't anybody pay attention to us? Just suggest that we flip-flop the names and bring all that money to your highway. Bring it all to I-44.
Easy peasy. Matter of fact, if we could take the city of St. Louis and rename it St. Genevieve, and the crime would go away, right?
It'd be remarkable.
Right.
So Don Mayhew was on. And by the way, he is, as we learned last time, thanks to our dear friend and listener to the show, Jeff Shawn from Butler County, the Butler County legend. Don Mayhew is from Pulaski County. I think I accused him of being from Phelps County last time. Anyway, Don Mayhew was on Scott Fawn's show. And they're talking about workforce. Don was a member of the panel, and they're talking about the state budget, how important it is to have an educated workforce. And here's what Don Mayhew had to say, Brad, about the economic challenges of the workforce. He said that a real problem is we have a little bit north of 2% of people who are, quote, 26-year-olds sitting in a basement of their mom and dad's house playing first-person shooter games and eating Cheetos.
You know, to a certain extent, he's right.
He's right, is he not, Brad?
I say that.
That's why he's the odds-on favorite to become your new favorite state representative. So I thought it was funny. Now, to her credit, another member of the panel, Representative Jamie Johnson, who's from Kansas City, she said, well, her son does live with her, but he's in his 20s. I forgot exactly how old he is. But he does work. He is a manager at Dick's Sporting Goods. And she pointed out that he does indeed eat Cheetos, Brad. But they are the flaming hot
Well, that makes a
Cheetos.
Difference, doesn't it?
It's a distinction, yeah. So anyway, Scott on the show also the folks talked a little bit about the education omnibus bill, covered a gamut of topics, talked about initiative petition changes and such. But shout out to Don Mayhew for calling out the 26-year-olds who were eating really unhealthy food and playing first-person shooter games. Now, Brad, as a teaser, our number one story also involves virtual reality games.
Okay, hold on a minute. She actually admitted that her son eats Cheetos, but she differentiated by he eats the flaming hot ones?
Yeah, it's flaming hot, so there's a difference.
Did she admit that tongue-in-cheek, or did she admit that seriously?
Yeah. I mean, it was a punchline.
Okay. I was going.
Yeah. She was aware of the. Yeah, she was very self-aware about it. She was funny about it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, here we go.
Up a notch to number 2.
The number 2 story, Brad. I'm gonna give this to you on the condition that you make me a promise. Will you promise me something?
It depends.
Okay. Well, I want. We'll look for an initial commitment here, Brad. The subject of the story. If I tell you the story, I don't want you to call this person.
It's Bill Eigel.
It is Bill Eigel.
Okay.
Can you give me the commitment?
I won't call him.
Okay. Well, then we might skip it and go right to number one. Now, we don't need to call Bill and annoy him about this, but there is something the next time that we naturally run into him or have a conversation with him, Brad, there's something to congratulate him for. Did you hear about this weekend?
I did not.
In the 3rd Congressional District, so remember how we had caucuses at the beginning of March?
Don't tell me Bill Eigel is pulling out of governor and he's going to run for Secretary of State. No?
Yeah, he's going to be the 9th entrant in the Secretary of State race, Brad.
Jump on in, the water's fine, right?
He made a deal with Jay Ashcroft, and Jay is going to give him some cargo shorts, some long white socks, and some sandals, and then they're going to go out and be bosom buddies on the campaign trail.
Wow, interesting.
Now, true story, though. Bill Eigel was elected. The people of the 3rd Congressional District Caucus elected Bill Eigel to be the presidential elector in 2024, Brad.
Really?
Yeah. So now the really interesting thing about this is that he defeated a guy named Ron Fitzwater, who's the mayor of Jefferson City. Now, Ron Fitzwater is a great man, well respected among Republican circles and Democrat circles. Great bipartisan reputation. If you've ever been near or around Missouri politics, you know Ron Fitzwater. He's just a wonderful man and a real public servant. In the Republican convention vote, Brad, Bill Eigel defeated Ron Fitzwater by a vote of 94-40.
Really?
To become the presidential elector. Yeah. So I mean, he doubled up. He doubled up Ron Fitzwater there. So really you can look at it too, and we've talked about this before, Brad, and that you have kind of your long, like a guy like Ron Fitzwater, I'm guessing has been involved for 30 plus years. I've known Ron for probably like at least 15 or 20. I probably met him 20 years ago. And you really have a new generation of Republican leaders that probably view the Ron Fitzwaters as being the establishment, and I'm not sure if that's fair or not.
So you're
But
saying
anyway, I think it's pretty interesting that Bill Eigel was elected to be a presidential elector. Now, one interesting point about this, I saw Scott Fawn tweeted about this and tweeted that people think that presidential electors don't really matter because it's kind of ceremonial. You get your electoral votes and then afterwards the presidential candidates vote. But you'll remember, Brad, that in 2020 there were presidential electors that said that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. So, if what Scott Fawn's point was, hey, if Biden wins, or this is my interpretation of Scott's tweet, if Biden wins and it's close, you could have a guy like Bill Eigel say, hey, we don't accept those election results.
And then in 2025 he'd be in jail, right?
He might be. Or you know what? Might not even be an issue, Brad. Might not even be an issue. It could be a landslide. To quote that, who was the hippie that sang Landslide?
Oh, you talking about one of the
Stevie Nicks or
Stevie
something?
Nicks, yes. Okay, let me ask you a question. You're saying what you're saying is, and I'm sort of dense this morning because it's Monday. You're saying that Bill Eigel is the new generation over the Jefferson City dude?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that every few years too, and again, you have to take a step back. And we talked last week, Brad, about the Pat Buchanan crowd, and we talk about the Ron Paul crowd.
Right.
Every few years, you have a real, genuine populist movement. And I think a guy like Bill Eigel, it is certainly in the governor's race, but also if you look at a presidential elector race, you have somebody who's a younger, aggressive, more populist voice.
Okay. And finally,
The number one.
More video games, Brad. We got to hear a lot about video games from Don Mayhew. Congresswoman Ann Wagner made a tour of Washington, Missouri. Not Washington, D.C., Washington, Missouri on Wednesday. She went around visiting local small businesses, talking a little bit about how they're doing, what they need to succeed. The Washington Missourian has this piece. And the highlight, Brad, the picture of it is Ann Wagner with a virtual reality headset on. And here's what she was playing, Brad. Quote, a VR zombie outbreak game. So, hey, people might look at Ann Wagner and say, she's establishment. She's in D.C. She's one of those types. She puts on a VR headset, Brad, and she's out there smoking zombies. She also went around. The story mentions that she stopped by some other businesses. At one, she purchased cigars and a bottle of tequila. a dude's going to plan to put in a cigar smoking room someplace in Washington. And she said that's a great idea. She anticipates it will do well. So she did kind of a walking tour of the Washington area and met with some folks and talked a little bit about the challenges of Missouri's small businesses, Brad.
You know what? There's a whole story. I need to tell this story sometime, which I think you'd find interesting about, because you just piqued my attention when you talked about Washmo and smoking and things like that, because there's a story that I still find fascinating because for a number of different reasons, but I'm going to go there. Now, first off, isn't she afraid of the Michael Dukakis effect? You know what the Michael Dukakis effect is?
No, explain that to me.
Don't you remember when he was running?
And by the way, Brad, I was 10 years old in 1988.
Okay, Michael Dukakis was running for president, and
he was, yes.
And he showed up at some military base, and he got into a tank.
Oh, with the tank, yeah.
And he put the
he
tank,
looked like Snoopy.
Right, he put the tank commander's helmet on, and the tank's driving around on this test range, and he looked like a doofus. And people say that is the single positive thing that prohibited for him from being president, because people thought, yeah, it's that stupid guy in the tank, right? So isn't she afraid of?
And by the way, he also had one of his advisors, and I believe it was Lee Atwater, made up a phrase called quiche in a can. Do you remember that line?
Yeah, it's all sorts of crazy stuff.
So yeah, now to her credit though, to the credit of Ann Wagner's team, to have Ann go out there, and by the way, coincidentally, Ann just happens to be running for re-election. But to have Ann go out and mingle with the people and do something kind of fun, put on a virtual reality headset, I think it's kind of a fun thing.
Did it mess up her hair?
I don't think it did. I think she has a team of folks that help coif it, Brad.
But what John was really impressed by when she was in Washington, while she had those...
Because she had to walk around, Brad. I know where you're going. She had to walk around.
Why she had those VR glasses on. If you looked at her feet, you know what she was wearing?
I have no idea.
John Cone best, he's a man of taste. He's got a thing for a certain type of grace. He don't care about diamonds or pearls. All he wants is a girl with comfortable shoes. He loves women in comfortable shoes. They walk with confidence they can't lose. He ain't into fashion or fancy trends. Give him a girl with comfort, and he'll be her best friend. He loves the way they walk on clouds. No need for heels or flashy crowds. In sneakers or sandals, they can't go wrong. John Cone best, he's singing their song. He loves women in comfortable shoes. They walk with confidence they can't lose. He ain't into fashion or fancy trends. Give him a girl with comfort, and he'll be her best friend. He loves women in comfortable shoes. They walk with confidence they can't lose. He ain't into fashion or fancy trends. Give him a girl with comfort, and he'll be her best friend.
That is the latest song done by the Brad and John Singers. And you know what? I couldn't agree with it more. John Conbest loves women in comfortable shoes because they walk with confidence.
Brad, let me tell you, behind the scenes, I was watching WrestleMania last night, which is my version of the Super Bowl. And I see the song, and I hit play. It doesn't matter that we're approaching the main event of WrestleMania. It's like the final offensive series in a Super Bowl for most normal people. You know what I do? Pause.
No,
I got to hear John Conbest loves women in comfortable shoes. An incredible composition, Brad. And there is one. Now, by the way, did you hear that Mark Maxwell is doing a fact check on this? He's like this, he's the Snopes of Missouri now. So he's going through, and you know what? He says he's got a piece coming on this, Brad.
So he's going to hold on a minute. I think I know who that just dinged me. I think it's our mutual friend. Hold on a minute. If I get my phone open. Okay, hold on a minute. Yes, it is. The John song is great. Brad, LMAO. Okay. It's Camellia. Okay. Okay. We need to go.
There is so much wonderful stuff there, Brad, and including, by the way, I have a genuine and sincere and non-sarcastic compliment, Brad,
Yes.
that has to do with your 2024 social media behavior, and it warms my heart. And I thought about it yesterday, and I should, as a friend, I should express it to you and tell you how proud I am of something.
Is it good or
Maybe
bad?
we'll talk about that in the next break.
Is it good or bad? Okay.
It's good. It's not sarcastic. I'm being dead serious.
Okay, so John, you're not mad at me about that because the
I
interesting thing
love that. And by the way, folks can go to YouTube and they can see that there is Brad added graphics, and there's 2 graphics. And by the way, well, I won't be graphic about the graphics, but anyway, Brad has added some tremendous graphics to the song.
I also did, by the way, I got my lower third thing working right, and I redid the Jason Rosenbaum thing, which has...
Your lower, Brad, are you having trouble with your lower third?
I am with my lower thirds. It's a TV talk
There's
there.
pills. There are little blue pills that can fix that, Brad. John Thomas loves women in comfortable shoes.
Okay, we have to take a break. It's 7:23.
Hello, Wentzville Fire friends. Fire Chief Mosier here. Stay connected at wentzvillefire.org and through our Wentzville Fire District app, available on Apple and Google Play. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We share safety tips and information related to our residents and business owners. Don't forget to download and follow Wentzville Fire cares about you.
AM radio provides always-on news, sports, talk, traffic, and weather reports. It also delivers vital emergency information when your community needs it most. A new bill in Congress would ensure AM radio stays in your car, because when cell and internet services are down, this free emergency service is critical. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to support the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
It's a new year. Is one of your resolutions to get in shape? Don't head to the gym. Head to Dance Pizzazz in O'Fallon. Yes, you can burn off those holiday calories by learning to dance. Don't have a partner? No problem. Lessons at Dance Pizzazz are one-on-one with our professional dance instructors. Our instructors are specially trained and certified to teach you today's most popular ballroom, Latin, and swing dances, and to help you become a more comfortable social dancer, all while getting in exercise and losing weight. Dance Pizzazz is in O'Fallon, just off 364 and Highway K. Call for more details, 636-441-6854, or sign up online at dance-pizzazz.com. That's dance-pizzazz.com. Learn to dance and change your life.
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's EGGBURT, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
You can check out our website at bjshow.co, just like Egbert said. By the way, I had a couple things to talk about in our second segment here, but you're going to make fun of my social media stuff? Is that what you're going to do? Yeah, you're going to.
See, by the way, Brad, you are assuming negative intent when somebody says they have a compliment for you, which sounds like a deeper issue. Because when I say that I have a compliment for you, you should assume positive intent, which means that I'm going to be positive. Here's what is great about you on social media in 2024 that you didn't used to do, Brad. And more specifically, it's something you don't do that you used to do. What you don't do, and what I appreciate, is that you don't take clips of our show, segments, whether it's YouTube or whatever, and you're not the reply guy. You don't do reply spam. Like, you don't go in if elected official says, "Oh, the Missouri state budget has doubled in the last 7 years. Can you believe it?" You don't go in and put a link to our show as if we're talking about something involving that. Now, in the past, and by the way, Brad, this is the statute of limitations has run out on all this. But in the past, when I followed you on Twitter, if elected official X would say that, back when you did the BS show with Shelley, you would include a link to the BS show for something unrelated to an elected official said. And then I would listen to the BS show, and I'd be like, when's Brad going to talk about the state budget? This is going to be awesome. And then the first 5 minutes were you calling Shelley because she wasn't on the line, and then you tried to get her on the line, and then we sit through this, and then you sit through the show, and there would be nothing about the state budget. And I'd be like, why would Brad post reply spam to public official X? Now, what you don't do, Brad, and what I appreciate is that you don't take our show and do reply spam. And I appreciate that because we don't spam people here. We're not We don't do that kind of stuff here, and I appreciate you not doing that.
Well, somebody who likes something I do for a change, or something I don't do actually, because of the fact that I have my haters out there, and once again, the crazy thing about it is, I don't go out of my way to bother anybody. If anything, I truly believe in the complimentary aspect of life. Hey, great. God, I used to have someone who used to work for me, and the running joke was on Monday morning when everybody would come back in from the weekend, this particular person would sit down and say, well, I went out with my girlfriends on Friday night, and we went down to the hill, and the pasta wasn't al dente, and the wine didn't taste very good, and there weren't enough ice cubes in our ice. And then on Saturday night, we went down to downtown, and the food, our steak was tough. And I go like, is there ever anything that you do that you
people that only see the negative and stuff, right? And that's a problem with lack of gratitude.
Okay, lack of gratitude. Okay, there we go. Okay, two things to talk about. Okay, you and I have an age difference. Do you remember the Pope's visit to the city of St. Louis?
Oh yeah, it was 1999, and Mel Carnahan was governor, and he leaned on Carnahan to exonerate some murderer.
And do you remember what happened, or actually, probably more importantly, what didn't happen?
Let's see. Oh, was it was it something about serving communion?
No, nobody showed up. Remember the news stations?
Oh yeah, he was in the Pope mobile and they didn't have big crowds.
Well, the news stations for like months, when the Pope gets here, there's going to be 5 million people coming to the St. Louis area.
Yeah, I remember that.
You're not going to be able to walk in downtown St. Louis, and the exact opposite happened, where nobody was anywhere. It was like everybody went like, "Oh my God!" And remember, it was a weekday. They closed the schools down. The whole crazy thing. I was actually doing news at the time for one of my companies, and my assignment, I signed myself to go to the airport, and the airport was like deserted. There was nobody there. I-70, you could have gone 119 miles an hour down I-70, not 120, but 119 down I-70. It was crazy. Okay. For the past week, I keep hearing the stories on national news about, oh my God, the cities that are in the eclipse zone, they're bringing in extra police because there's going to be 40 million people show up in so-and-so Texas to watch. I'm going like, what?
Yes. And by the way, there's a link on my website today, Brad, of quote, overwhelming, unquote, eclipse crowd expected at Elephant Rocks.
We went through the eclipse. Matter of fact, I can tell you where we was at because Shelley and I got hired to do a remote broadcast at two different parks. Of all crazy things, I was at Klondike Park, which is interesting. I was at Klondike Park. That was when there were actually people in there. And Shelley was out at one of the new parks. Is that Wappelhorst? I can't remember what it is. It's on Double D, south of the new O'Day Park. It's probably.
I would have thought you'd assign yourself to some Double Ds, Brad.
No. So anyway, that was when, and we were hired by essentially the St. Charles County Parks and Rec, where we did a live broadcast the whole bit. Okay.
Oh, nice.
And it was sort of cool. And matter of fact, at my location, I was at there's a shelter, a pretty neat little shelter in Klondike Park. And there was a guy, and I'm like the doing the play-by-play and playing music and stuff like that, playing the radio station. And a guy comes up to me and says, when it gets full eclipse, I'm going to propose to my girlfriend. And he says, can you come over and take some pictures of me? And I say, yeah, I'd be more than happy to. So sure enough, at the full eclipse, he drops down on his knee in front of his girlfriend and asks her to marry her, which I thought was sort of cool. But, okay, now once again, we're at Klondike Park, and I think Klondike Park set a record for the attendance that day. I think there were all of 23 or 24 people in the park that day, which set an all-time record for attendance in Klondike Park. But the point being is, I keep hearing these stories about, okay, let's compare the eclipse to the Pope. When the Pope was in St. Louis, there's a very limited area where the Pope was going to be. The Pope was going to be at the airport, then he's going to go on I-70 downtown, then he's going to go to the new cathedral, what is that, in the Central West End, and then he was going back to the airport and he was going to be gone. Okay, we're talking about a swath of the United States, which goes from the Mexican border, and I think it's like 100 miles wide, and it goes all the way up through Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, southern part of Missouri into southern Illinois, and then essentially, it sort of does like a 45. If you look at it, the path on a map, it looks like a 45-degree slash starting like on, the Texas-Mexican border, which would be west of the Gulf of Mexico, all the way up into the Great Lakes. Okay? How in the world are you going to have huge crowds, which the police are going to have to control, in an area that's probably, 1,000 square miles? Something like that?
Yeah. I don't get why it's different, and this could very well be my ignorance, Brad, but I don't get why it's different viewing it in north of where I am or south of where I am. Like, if your friends are having a party, that's like the only reason to leave wherever you are at that moment, I think.
Well, Dave Murray explained this the other day. I was listening to him on 97.1, and he gave a very good explanation of this. He says in the St. Louis area, we're going to have 98%. But he said that may sound like a big deal. He says, but it's not. He says, because the sun is so bright, even with 2% of the sun shining through, it'll still be very light. And it won't be like super, super, super dark. It won't be like the eclipse that, back when, the day. But he did say that the nighttime animals will start to come out, and you'll hear animals that don't normally, make noises, and unless it's dark, you'll hear the animals start to do that. And I'm going, okay, whatever. Once again, I know there are people that are all excited about this, and I'm thinking to myself, if someone called me up right now and said, Brad, I'm going to pick you up, and we're going to go two places, and you pick which one. We're going to go and watch the eclipse, or we're going to go watch paint dry at a construction site. I'd say, let's go watch the paint dry at the construction site, because I think that'll be a little bit more interesting. And by the way, there'll be some construction workers we can talk to and maybe have a good old time. Okay, that's just me. Okay, second thing is, here we go again, okay? And this is not me president bashing, but I don't understand what's going on with this, especially after the Supreme Court shut the president down. He's on the campaign trail today, and what's he pushing? Forgiveness of more college loans, okay?
Yeah, why not, Brad? If you take some money out, why should you be expected to pay it back?
Well, because what about the people who didn't go to college? What about the people who paid for their college?
Well, that's, tough, what, said the kitty, but the milk's still good. That's the decision they made, Brad.
How would you like to be the parents of kids who scrimped and saved so their kids could go to college, and yet the president say, well, we're going to forgive these loans. Now, if he's going to forgive some loans, I got a car loan he can forgive?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brad, it's an election year gambit, and it's also the idea that if you have made bad financial decisions, it's not your fault. Somebody else should pay for it. And you know what, Brad? As some of our friends who are Democrats will point out, it's the government's money. It's not like it's real money. It's just the government forgiving debt, Brad.
But here we go again. Where does the government get that money from, John?
Well, they pray really hard, Brad. They pray to the oyster bunny, because I think that's how it works. And then they just get the money, Brad. And you know what? To quote Jamal Bowman talking about reparations, just print more money.
Say hello to
just
oyster
print more money,
bunnies.
Brad.
Say hello to oyster bunnies.
But the notion, Brad, and here's the thing. I think for every vote, and I've seen no numbers on this, Brad, so this is pure conjecture, but every vote that the Democrats get and that Biden gets for saying, hey, don't have to worry about that student loan, don't have to pay it back, there is a mother and a father and a student that says that's in their 40s now that says, wait a minute, I chose to not go to college, or I chose to go to Harvard on the highway instead of going to Mizzou, or I chose to learn a trade or whatever instead of taking on that debt. This is not fair. You guys talk about fairness all the time. This is not fair. So I think for every vote the Democrats get for this, they at least lose one vote.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess the thing that bothers me about this is this, and the Supreme Court shot this down. Now, the interesting part to me is, once again, and I'm not going to sound like I'm a Trump lover, but Trump gets in trouble for these very, 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 very technical aspects of the law. I mean, like the fact that he just got this huge judgment against him because of the fact that he essentially screwed the banks. Although the banks during the testimony said, "Hey, we
don't have a problem.
We don't have a problem with this guy. He's a whale, man. We wish we had more clients like him. He repaid his loans. We didn't have any problem. Matter of fact, he repaid some of them early. Okay, but yet we've got a Supreme Court which essentially says you can't forgive these loans, but yet the president is finding legal loopholes so we can forgive these loans. Matter of fact, he already forgave one set of loans to and once again, I'm not making fun of any kind of people when I say this, but I heard a guy give a very, very well-reasoned article or very well-reasoned explanation of this, that he forgave loans to public safety officers, people who were policemen and firemen. And one of the interesting aspects was this guy said the people that have the best protection are the public service people who are the firefighters and the police officers, because they have great benefits, they have great pension, they have great health care. They're the ones that don't need this. It's the guy who went to school who, maybe is unfortunately, underemployed because he's got a degree in appreciation of comfortable shoes or something like that. and you know what I'm saying? It's to the point where I
know exactly what you're saying. And of course, the practical nature of it is that God forbid you stand up and say that you are against any kind of protection for first responders or your favorite group, Brad, teachers.
Well, you're exactly right, John. I mean, and once again, I have tremendous respect for fire professionals and for the police department. Remember, I told the story before, I put myself through college as a police dispatcher, and it changed my life forever. And once again, I've told people, I think we've even talked about in this show before, if you get pulled over, the words that never should come out of your mouth are, "Do you know who I am?" You don't ever want to say that to a police officer, because I know the cops who had that said to them, and several times the cops would come back into the squad room and say, "Yeah, I pulled over this guy and I was just going to give him a warning." And he said, "Do you know who I am?" So I went back to my squad car and wrote him a state.
And I got my nightstick and I beat the hell out of him.
Right. No, I wrote him.
And I roughed him up.
I wrote him a ticket. Okay, because once again, the worst thing you can say to a cop is, not necessarily the worst, but one of the worst things is you want to essentially elevate yourself above him. In other words,
absolutely.
You have just...
And by the way, couldn't we apply that to every aspect of our lives?
Sure. I mean, like for example, there's so many things to the point where it's like, okay, why is it that someone gets preferential treatment over me? Why is it that when I go to the store, the lady who complains the most is the one who gets the manager to help her? You know what I mean? Why is that?
Absolutely.
Okay, we have to take another break. Maybe just the beginning. Hold on, maybe I'll just play a couple.
I wish we had a little bumper music, Brad.
Oh, we do.
John Cone Best, he's a man of taste. He's got a thing for a certain type of grace. He don't care about diamonds or pearls. All he wants is a girl with comfortable shoes.
How's that for bumper music?
It's so good, Brad. Oh my goodness.
Okay,
you think we could get Z1077 to start playing?
Man, they'll be on it tonight. You watch. 7:40.
As we all live longer, age really is just a number, but retirement is so much more than one. Hi, I'm Mike McGee, your local Edward Jones financial advisor, and I want to know what you want out of your retirement. Call me at 636-379-1913 or at edwardjones.com/Mike-McGee, and the last name is spelled McGhee. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
West County Auto Body. 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 They're the best in the country. Nobody better. WestCountyAuto.com.
Are you a friend or family member of someone with dementia or Alzheimer's? Hi, I'm Diane Kettering with Echo Connect for Caregivers. Echo Connect for Caregivers understands how stressful it can be to care for someone with memory loss. We have a workshop specifically designed for the caregiver who wants to reset, connect with other caregivers, and have some fun while learning skills that will assist them in taking care of their patient or loved one. Check out EchoConnectForCaregivers.com to learn more or to register for an upcoming workshop. That's EchoConnectForCaregivers.com, where we believe caregivers need care too.
We've all heard those commercials telling us to send our unwanted gold through the mail in return for cash. But do you really trust those fly-by-night operations to give you a fair price for your precious metal? Do you honestly feel comfortable just waiting for the money to appear in the mail? Well, folks, let me tell you something. I wouldn't, but I do trust my locally owned Altamiller Jewelry in Washington. In fact, they've been serving the local community for decades, and you can trust them to give you the best price for your old gold. They'll even give you a check right there on the spot. So gather up your unwanted gold and take it to Altamiller Jewelry at 2057 Washington Crossing, near the intersection of 47 and 100 in Washington.
It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
John, we're going to start this segment off. This is going to be Ask John. This is going to be John is going to give his advice, okay?
I'm happy to. I'd love to.
Maybe not necessarily advice, but your opinion, okay? Last week, I'm heading west in 44, and I'm out in Franklin County. I'm past the St. Louis County line. I'm on I-44. I'm between Pacific and Gray Summit, the Highway 100 exit. There's two of them out there. There's 100 at Gray Summit, 100 at Washmo, okay? And I look in my rearview mirror, and let me give you the important parameters. I'm doing 75. Cruise control set at 75. Speed limit is 70 out there. Cruise control at 75. I'm a +5 kind of guy, you know?
Yeah, so am I.
Okay. I look in my rearview mirror, and I've got a tractor trailer who is maybe 5 feet off my bumper.
Ooh.
Okay, now I'm in the center lane. Keep in mind, I'm in the center lane, okay? So I look in my rearview mirror. 5 feet becomes 4 feet. 4 feet becomes 3 feet. He's literally 2 feet off my bumper. And we're doing 75. And by then, the thing that caught my attention was I saw this in my side view mirror, and he's flashing his lights and honking his horn at me, okay? I'm doing 75 in the center lane. Now, John, I'm not in the left lane, sitting in the left lane doing 65. Yeah. I'm in the center lane doing 75. Isn't that like what you should be doing? I mean,
absolutely. And there's nothing blocking him on the lane's not closing up ahead. I'm thinking of possible reasons why he wouldn't just use the passing lane to pass.
Well, I couldn't figure that either. So, and this is going on for this happened just before I got to Pacific. Okay, if you know that area there, you come down there, you're going through the whoops there between Pacific and Eureka, and then there's a slow left-hand curve that you come into Eureka, come into Pacific, and that's when he started coming on for me. So essentially, for the entire length of the span from just east of the Pacific exit, almost all the way out to the Gray Summit exit. Okay, so at the Gray Summit exit, he passes me on the right, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not going to be good, because I thought to myself, I know exactly what he's up to. He passes me on the right, and as he gets about halfway in front of me, so in other words, the front part of the tractor trailer is in front of me, the back part of the tractor trailer is behind me, he honks at me again, throws his hand out the window, flips me off, and cuts me off and forces me into the fast lane, and I'm going like, this is nutty. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, what the hell's the problem? I mean, I wasn't in the left lane. Now, once again, if I was in the left lane and I was doing 75, because I think it's still a law in the state of Missouri is, unlike multi-lane highways, the law is you're supposed to keep right except for passing, okay?
You're right, and that you can't just set the cruise control at 75 in the passing.
Right,
you're right.
Even though that's legal speed, or even though the legal speed limit's 70, it doesn't allow you to block the fast lane. You're supposed to stay out of that fast lane, okay? Center lane, dude, get off my damn bumper. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So clearly he had some kind of a problem.
Yes.
And now also, Brett, so first of all, number one, you did the right thing. And you did the right thing this is a forward-looking statement, but you didn't retaliate against him in any way. And also think of how many people, if he's going from here to Lord knows where, Tulsa, Oklahoma, how many people he did the exact same thing to. Well, so it's not anything personal.
The rest of the story is then he comes up on the left side of me, and I realize at this point in time there's a woman in the passenger seat, and she rolls down the window and throws comfortable shoes at me.
Yeah, I bet she did, Brad. And you know what? Now she's got to go to Naturalizer and wait for another clearance to spend another $17.95 on a pair of shoes that no man wants to slip off after an event. And by the way, can we go back to the song real quick? A 15-second anecdote about the song, Brad.
Yes, go ahead.
Is that the line in there that's most accurate? Now, Mark Maxwell is going to do a fact check on this and show that the song is not accurate. But the one line that's accurate is when you say that if you wear comfortable shoes, John will be your best friend. The truth is, if I see you and you're a woman and you're in comfortable shoes, you are automatically friend zoned. Like, any hopes for the future? If you think one day, I'm going to, John's going to start hitting the kitten, you're out of here. Okay. I will be your friend if you wear comfortable shoes.
Okay.
So, Brad, you were talking about I-44.
Okay. Can I? This something just popped up on my Facebook page. I'm so ticked off at this guy. This guy, I don't know where he's at. I don't know why he keeps coming up.
Ed Golterman? Why does he keep coming on your page, Brad?
No. His name is Jeff Adams. I just opened my Facebook feed, and here he is, Jeff Adams. Okay, here we go again. Okay, I'm going to read this. Hindsight is always 20/20, so I have no regrets, but I should have exited WINC-FM and the radio industry entirely in 2011. But then again, the next 10 years of my career were full of highlights, including 3 Marconi nominations and being the #1 on air simultaneously in 2 different markets. But the WINC-FM years with the Lewis family, the original owners, are something special indeed. All he does is complain about, I used to be in the radio business and it sucks.
And now it sucks.
Oh, man.
Well, but we're, and we're coming, Brad, we mentioned earlier, off WrestleMania. And there's a cliche in the wrestling business of, excuse me, let me clear my throat here for a second. There's a cliche in the wrestling business of when the world changed and when Vince McMahon came in and bought up the St. Louis territory and all this stuff changed, there's the cliche of all these wrestlers that missed out on a ton of fun, on a ton of opportunity, on a ton of money, to just sit around and be bitter. And no matter what happens, Brad, there are people that probably worked at Monsanto that were really unhappy about Bayer, and we all sit back with rose-colored glasses and we're like, oh, remember in my day, things were great. And we forget about this guy forgets about whatever bad times he had at this radio station, and he only remembers the good times. And I like, though, in his complaint, how he was able to both complain and be bitter, but also let everybody know that he won some awards.
But see, once again, it's to the point where, once again, to a certain extent, the radio business is a tough business, okay? And have I had my highs and lows? I mean, some would say I've got my lows right now, and some would be right. But the highs and lows of any business where essentially it's not like a job where you start at 21 and you retire. I mean, like, what's the old crazy thing? There are a lot of jobs where they do the math. You know what I'm talking about? Oh,
yeah. And they do it so much that the retirement funds have a target date on them, and they can tell you, okay, you just follow this formula and you'll be done.
Right. Years of service plus your age. So in other words, if you started a job at 40 and you did 20 years, you can retire at 60 and stuff like that. Okay, the problem on that is that, and I know I'm going to offend some people when I say this, but if you start a job with the idea that, well, if I do this job and I hang on for 20 years, I'll be able to retire, that's like saying, you know what, I got this woman I met, and she's really sort of a pain in the butt, and her and I don't get along very well. But you know what? If I marry her and I, endure 20 years with her, we're going to have some good kids, and then I can divorce her. Why?
Yeah. Or more specifically, Brad, it's like a jail sentence.
Right.
You say, I just do 20 years in the clink, and then when I get out, I'll be great at license plates, and I'll be able to play drums in a band.
It's to the point where I'm going like, okay, it's interesting. I didn't know this because I'm not a real interesting real celebrity kind of guy. You know who Chris Pine is, the actor?
Oh yeah, really famous actor.
Okay, do you know who his father is?
No.
I didn't know this until I'm listening to Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR. Yes, I do listen to that every week. I enjoy that show where they do the trivia show and stuff like that. Okay, his father is Robert Pine. Now, I know you're going to say, who's Robert Pine? Okay, did you ever watch Chips, the TV show?
Oh, yeah, I love Chips.
Okay.
I love Chips.
You know who Robert Pine is?
No, which guy?
He's their sergeant.
Oh, no way.
That is Chris Pine's father. Okay? His name is Robert Pine. And Chris Pine, when he's being interviewed on Wait, Don't Tell Me, essentially said, when he became, I guess, like a teenager, he said to his son, this is really a crummy business. And he says a lot of his days were, he remembers his father's days were spent going to auditions, which he didn't get. And once again, a lot of negativity, a lot of, you go and you get, the director.
Rejection. Yeah.
Rejection, that's the word I'm looking for, okay? And he said the story was that one time he was in some school play and he did very well. And his mother came up to him after the play and said something to the effect that, like, you know what, you did a nice job, but I think you'll make a better lawyer. And he essentially said, no, I'm hooked. I want to be an actor. Okay? Once again, you go into something and you say, I know this is a tough business, and I know whatever it is. I mean, once again, it's like someone who wants to be, how many times did you watch American Idol? And let's go, now it's on the version 2, which is on ABC. Originally started out on Fox. What is it, 26, 27 years, 28 years now?
Yeah, long time.
Long time, okay. Except for Carrie Underwood and Kelly Clarkson. Tell me 5 of the American Idol winners. Can you do that, John?
Couldn't do it. Absolutely couldn't
right.
do it.
And once again, these were people that at the time were, oh my God, did you see when the Final Four the other night when it was Bertram and Huxtable and blah blah blah, and oh my God, she was so good and he was even better. And now there's like, bonk, they're gone. We don't even know who they are anymore. Okay, it's Carrie Underwood and Kelly Clarkson. Okay, once again, this is a tough damn business. And the idea being is that if there's a lot of competition, the chances are, look at all sorts of things. Okay, my son, we got into, at one point in time, I've never told this story before, my son did BMX. And you know what BMX riding is?
Oh, yeah, of course.
BMX is like motocross on a bicycle. And to this day, I think it's still out there in St. Peter's. They have a really nice BMX track. And my son wanted to get into this. One of his friends did. I think my son at the time was, 9 or 10 or something like that. This is my oldest son, Brett. And so he asked me, he says, Dad, could I really do this? So I went and bought him a bike, bought him a nice helmet, and I sat out there and I watched him race, okay? And then one Father's Day, we raced on Friday nights and on Sunday. One Father's Day, they said, hey, any of your fathers want to come on and get on your son's bike? We're going to do a special race for you. And I go, I'm in. So I took my son's helmet, put my helmet on, went on the BMX track, absolutely positively loved it, okay? I went out and bought myself a bike. I competed. At the time, I was in my 40s, okay? And I want to say on a scale of 1 to 10, I maybe got to maybe skill level 3, 4, maybe 5 on a good day. There were guys who were 10 years older than me who wiped me out. Who were like so good at this. And I thought to myself, there's no way. In one point in time, I was ranked 8th in the state. Okay, but I knew that I would never attain that because these guys were mountain bikers. They lived their life on their bicycle. Okay, I didn't have the time, stuff like that. Okay, so did I get discouraged? No, I just enjoyed the fact that I get out there. Now, unfortunately, didn't end up too well because one night, what they did was, they had us in age classes in 5-year increments, and one year a bunch of the old guys didn't show up. I was the only guy there. I was the only guy over 40 at the time, and they combined us into one heat, and I was up against these 25 and 30-year-old dudes, and we went up on the doubles where you go up and you go flying in the air, go up in the doubles, and unfortunately, when it was in the air, a guy bumped me, and my bike went out from underneath me, and I hit the ground without my bike. And I broke my arm. That's like broken arm number 4 or something like that. Broke 3 ribs, had a concussion, the whole bit. And it didn't end my career. I went back. But once again, the idea being is I knew that I was never going to be because some of these guys were going to like the nationals and they were competing. There was the state finals and then the national finals. I knew I wasn't that good, and I took that. And to the point where did it bother me? No, I enjoyed what I did. But this lunkhead, I'm going to send you the screenshot of this. And like I said,
send it to me.
I got into a fight with, and you said I don't hardly ever do this, but I got into a fight with when I said something about this guy a couple weeks ago, because I'm so tired of hearing this. Because once again, if every morning we started out the show and I said, Sunset Hills is the worst place to live. It's a terrible place to live.
And Republic Services messed up my trash pickup the other week, and the lady at Schnucks didn't smile at me the way I like her to smile at me.
Right. And I went to the license bureau, and I had to wait an hour. Most people go like, only an hour? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once again, the idea being is if you diss something all the time, first off, people go, oh, here he goes again. It's Debbie Downer or Donnie Downer or whatever. And to the point where, especially if you spent all this time in an industry and then you look back and go, well, I can't believe I should have quit 10 years ago. Dude, you should have never gone into that industry.
Yeah.
You should have done something else.
But isn't it more a broader issue of, number one, people blame an institution instead of their own decisions. So the radio industry, if you think it's, quote, messed up, like the radio industry doesn't care how you feel about it. But like the radio industry isn't a person. The radio industry didn't wake up this morning and have breakfast. It's an entity. It's something outside of your control.
Okay.
And number two, this guy sounds like somebody for whom his entire identity and his self-worth was wrapped up in being a, quote, success, unquote, in the radio industry. So if the radio industry in his mind goes south and he goes south, then suddenly he feels threatened about who he is as a person. Like, I don't think, Brad, if Joe Biden said we're having no more radio tomorrow, I don't think you would wake up and say, well, my life sucks and my time here on earth has meant nothing. Like, you wouldn't internalize that because your self-worth isn't tied up in the radio industry.
Well, but I think sort of the problem that I have with the whole situation is he's saying, look how bad things are now in the radio business. Okay, and when I was going back and forth with a couple of these people, he's got another guy who jumped in who was also an ex-radio person, and they go, radio's terrible now. Nobody listens to radio. I pull up the article from March, or it was either February, March, from Nielsen, still talks about radio is the number one mass media.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about it is, okay, the radio business has gone through some crazy times, okay? Back in the 30s and 40s, it was the entertainment medium. People used to sit around. There's pictures of people sitting around their radios in the living room listening to the radio, okay? Then television came along, and radio went through identity crisis because most of radio was network programming. It was the Jack Benny show, and it was the so-and-so orchestra and stuff like that. All of a sudden, that moved over. It was Lark's Welk, and that all moved over to television, okay? So what did radio do? It reinvented itself, okay, on the AM dial, and you've got the Wolfman Jacks of the world and the Dick Clarks of the world who came along and reinvented radio, okay? Then radio went through another change in the late 60s, early 70s, where all of a sudden there's these FM stations. You had all these progressive stations like KSHE and WMMS and WPLG in New York and stuff like that. So then it went through another change when I got into it, where Top 40 moved from AM over to FM, and then when it looked like AM was dead, Rush Limbaugh comes along and brings this whole new format of political talk, and it's again, it's to the point where it's like keeps rising from the dead, and because of the fact that once again, now the thing it's getting interesting. If you listen to any of the iHeart stations, especially listen to the Patriot, they're running all these interesting promos where they're interviewing people for like the marketing director of Hyundai, and they're talking about the influence that audio has, not necessarily just radio, but now they're calling it audio in the respect that it's radio, it's podcasts, it's streaming, it's all sorts of different things. It's like exactly what you and I are doing. We've turned this show sort of into a Swiss Army knife where we get done with this show, we're doing it live. I chop it up, it becomes a podcast. It becomes a video, and it becomes YouTube. So people can listen to the show they can listen to it as a podcast, the show as a video, and people are going like, why would you listen to it as a video? The interesting thing about this is most of the big podcasters, you look at the Joe Rogan thing, they've moved over to video as well too, because there's a generation that doesn't just want to listen to the radio, to listen to the audio. They want to see the facial movements and the expressions on the people and the crazy stuff on their face and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm going nuts. I'm sorry, John.
And they want to hear songs about shoes, Brad.
John, what again now? What did you say?
I think they wanted to hear. Wait, do you think they want to hear about heels or pool heels or stilettos? No. What do they want to hear?
Jack home best, he's a man of taste. He's got a thing for a certain type of grace. He don't care about diamonds or pearls. All he wants is a girl with comfortable
There you have it right there. A girl with comfortable shoes.
It's beautiful, Brad. It'll bring you down at the course of a day. And in fact, when I see comfortable shoes, if I'm up, they do bring me down, Brad.
John, say goodbye.
I meant my mood.
Say goodbye, okay?
See you guys tomorrow.
8:01.
News. I'm Gianna Gelosi. Today is the day a rare total solar eclipse going to darken the skies across more than a dozen states in a show that won't be seen again in the U.S. for another 20 years. The path of totality is going to begin in Texas around 1:30 p.m. local time, exit over the U.S. across Maine about an hour.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?